Welcome back. We've got our hook in the fire. We're going to go ahead and pull that out and continue on from where we were last time. All right, so we've got our hook good and hot. We want to come in and spread this material side to side. So we're going to put it down with the shoulders visible, and I'm going to use the peen of the hammer, hammering in the middle and working out toward the edges, spreading this material. As I do this, what you will start seeing is that the top edge here is going to go over faster than the bottom edge. So I'll flip it from time to time. I'm also going to come in, give it a couple blows just to keep everything lined up. I don't want to wind up with a lot of fish lipping where I've got the center not moving and the edges rolling out over it. We'll get this hot again, and this will take a couple heats to really spread this. Back in with the cross peen on the hammer. I'm trying to make sure my hammer blows are going all the way to the back of the eye and are coming down nice and flat. Take one more heat on this. I want to get this a little thinner. I need to be careful because the next step is going to be upsetting this flatter or back down into itself. If I get it too thin, then I'm not going to be able to successfully take this down to a square from a rectangle. All right, we'll take one more pass with the peen of the hammer. And that's looking about as thin as I want to go. I now want to come in and get rid of those hammer marks. So I'm going to give it some nice sharp blows with the face, flip it over, same thing. So what we've got now is it's spread out side to side some. This one's a little long maybe, and about half the original thickness of the bar. So we're going to come in next, drop this in the vise, and take it into a square instead of a rectangle. All right, we've got it hot. Back here to the vise. Starting to bend on me. Open that back up. Over here to the anvil. Straighten it out. Let's take a look at how that's looking. We're getting pretty close. I think we might have enough heat in here to finish this off. Let's get this hot and straighten it out and see how it looks. All right, we're getting hot here. We're just going to flatten this out. I think I'm pretty happy with that. We want something nice and square, so that we can then go in and knock these corners off and take it round. I'm going to set this in the fire and talk to you guys a little bit about how to do this effectively. Let's come over and draw on the anvil a little bit here. So, if this is our anvil right here, put the A right side up for you guys. What we want to make sure that we're doing is hammering directly through our piece of steel. So anytime we're hammering, we want our blow to hit the steel and for there to be a straight line down between our hammer and the steel. If I hammer here, what I'm going to do is bend the steel, not knock those corners in. I need to always be hitting straight through the steel in. That's going to round off this corner, round off this corner. The other thing I'm going to need to be careful of when we're doing this is that I'm not hitting in the same spot too many times. If I hit in the same spot, then I'm going to wind up flattening it out, and that'll make it less round, a little harder to deal with. So I've got it good and hot. I'm going to come in, put the corner on the anvil, the other corner up, hammer straight down into it, just work my way around. I'll flip it over, do the same thing. This tends to upset these corners, so I'll give them some blows to flatten them out. I'm just going to work my way slowly around that piece of steel, taking it rounder and rounder. If I need to, I may come back here to the edge of the anvil where my anvil stand isn't getting in the way, so I can get an even better angle on that. There we go. That is reasonably round, and you can see I did it by always hammering straight through the piece of steel into the anvil. We're going to get this hot again, and then we're going to come in with the punch and punch our hole. For this, I will ask one of the other smiths that's out here tonight to help hold the steel as I punch through it. Makes it way easier than trying to hold the tongs between your legs while you come in with the hammer and the punch. So before I pull this out and put the punch through it, let's talk a little bit about punching. This is a medium carbon piece of steel. It's 4142. It's been heat treated. I want to be careful that I don't get it overly hot. So I've got a can of water here that I can quench it in to make sure it stays cool. If I let this heat up, it's going to mess up my heat treatment. The steel will get softer and it'll tend to mushroom on the end. Because it is a medium carbon piece of steel, I'm going to be using a brass hammer as well, so I'm not striking two hardened pieces of steel together. I've got George who's going to be helping me with this. Let's see if it's hot, and I'll have him hold the piece of steel for me. We are good and hot, so George, if you wouldn't mind holding that, just in the center of the anvil here. I'm going to come in, get it where I'm happy with it, look up here, hammer, make sure I'm happy, quench that to keep it cool. Another couple blows. It feels like it's no longer going lower down, and I can hear it hitting the anvil, so we're going to flip it over. There's a flat spot right there, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to put my punch on that flat spot and hammer down into it. Oh. Normally at this point, we would take it over to the pritchel hole and we'd knock the slug out all the way, but it popped out on me on the anvil right there. Let's cool that down. Let me show you that. I'll grab these from you. That little piece of steel is still pretty hot, so I want to cool it down with some water. So, we are making a 1/2 inch hole for our eye here. And all we're going to remove that steel is this little slug. This is one of the really nice things about blacksmithing. If you want to make a big hole in something without losing a lot of the strength, punching and drifting is a great way to do it. If we drilled this hole, all that steel would be gone. It wouldn't be adding to the strength of our hook. But here, just lose that little baby slug right there. All right, let's finish heating up our steel, and we're going to grab the drift that we made earlier, take that hole out to a 1/2 inch size. All right, we've got our steel good and hot. We're drifting this out pretty wide, so I do want to make sure I've got a good hot heat on it. I'm going to take our drift, slot it in there, put it over the Pritchel hole, and start driving through. It is quickly going to cool down our piece of steel. And as it does so, I'm going to stop. Just drive that back out and heat this back up. I don't want to cause any cracks or any problems with the steel, so I'm going to go slow and make sure I keep it hot the whole time. As a word of warning, this drift that was in the piece of steel and is now on the ground, it is still hot. It'll be real tempting to say, oh, it wasn't in there that long. It was been on the ground for a couple minutes. Always pick it up with the tongs and quench it before you're going to use it again. All right, we've got it good and hot. Bring it back here, put it over the Pritchel hole. Start hammering through it again. Almost all the way there, but it's good and cold. So I'm going to drive that back out and reheat this. Once again, that punch on or drift on the ground is hot. So we're going to quench that before we use it. All right, we should be through on this last one here. So let's drop this over the Pritchel hole again. Give it the final couple hammer blows, and we are all the way through. So we now have a half inch hole in our piece of steel, having only lost the material from that one little slug. It can be useful sometimes as this cools to just drive the drift back through it a couple more times. If your upset is a little undersized, that can help make sure that you wind up with something that's truly 1/2 inch. But I'm going to go ahead and quench this. We are done with it. And our hook is really starting to look a whole lot like a hook. All right, our hook is just about warm. So as we go into this next step, I will say I find that this is one of the spots that students struggle with the most as they're learning to make this hook. There's a couple real challenges that we've got. Number one, and the biggest one, is really that steel moves the easiest where it's the hottest and where it's the thinnest. What we're going to be doing is going in and trying to move it where it's the thickest and bend it around. So that'll take some work, and we just need to make sure that as we're going through there, we're hitting in the right spots. This will be very similar to when we've made our little loops on the hooks. So we're going to take it, bring it to the anvil, knock it around the edge, and that'll bend it, flip it back up, and give it some hammer blows back like this. We're not really so worried if things get off sideways or a little wonky. We're really trying to get that bend down to where our center punch mark was, so that that thickest part of the steel is right at the bottom of the hook. This piece of steel is going to get pretty hard to hold with those wolf jaw tongs. Luckily, I've got a pair of box jaw tongs here. Normally, I can slide the eye back here behind it and use this to support the body of the hook. If you don't have a pair of these, you've just got the wolf jaws or another pair of tongs, it's going to be a little bit of a struggle for you. This is why blacksmiths wind up with so many different types of tongs. So we'll bring this here to the edge, We'll start tapping it around. I'm going to brace it against my hip and hammer back toward myself. That is looking pretty good. Again, all I really want to do is make sure that my center punch, where that thickest part of the steel is right there at the bottom of the bend. And I think I'm pretty happy with that. So now we're going to need to bend the tail of this out a little bit. We're going to need to bend the eye back. Let's bend that tail first, and then we'll worry about the eye. All right, we've got this good and hot. Let's come in and adjust that tail, flatten it out a little bit. What I'm going to do is put the tail on the horn and then hammer on the unsupported part. Let's get that hot again. All right, we've got this neck hot. I'm gonna hang it onto the horn there. Let's give it some blows to bend that eye back. I want a couple more here. Kind of adjusted the shape a little bit. So I'm going to come in here, close this up a little bit more. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to take one final exercise where I'm going to come in and flatten the outside edge of this a little bit. That's going to widen it. The wider it is, the more it's going to resist bending open when it's under load. All right, so I'm going to come here, hammer preferentially on the outside edge. Let's close my hook up a little bit. I'll bring it here to the horn. Open that up a little bit more. I think that is looking pretty good. It's a lot of personal preference, on what exactly you want this hook to look like. Let's quench that off and take a closer look. I always tell students, think about the platonic ideal of a hook in your mind. That one thing that defines whether or not something's a hook, and try and recreate that. So what we've got now is a hook where if we hang it, it's going to pull directly in line with the eye. The thickest part of this hook is going to be right down in here to help resist any bending when it's under load. And that's looking pretty good. So next video, we'll start looking at forge welding and how to make chain links so that we can make some links come up off this hook. Thank you guys very much. If you do have any questions, please put them in the comments. And as a member of the Tautology Club, we will make sure that we answer all the ones that we answer. Thanks.